Here we have part 2 of our persuasion lectures. In part 2, we'll discuss argumentation primarily. So first of all, what is an argument? There's a lot of common thoughts that occur to us whenever we hear the word argument. But I'd like to start with a definition by defining argument kind of loosely here. Arguing is not fighting. Arguing is reasoning about issues. It is not attacking personalities. Arguing is socially constructive and culturally sensitive. Arguing strives for accuracy. Arguing acknowledges value in alternative or even opposing viewpoints. Arguing is ethical. However, the alternative to arguing is not. The alternative to arguing or argument is what we call verbal aggressiveness within communication studies, or some researchers do just call it fighting. I personally prefer the term verbal aggressiveness because it has a lack of physical connotation to it, because that's really the focus, is the words or the verbal side of it. A more textbook definition of argument: an argument is a stated position with support for or against an idea or issue. And arguments are made up of 3 parts. You have the claim, the evidence, and the warrants. A claim in an argument states the speaker's conclusion about some state of affairs. It says what the speaker believes. The evidence substantiates the claim, or gives substance to it, in other words. The warrants provide reasons that the evidence is valid or supports the claim. So it ties the evidence to the claim, making it clear and easy to understand how your evidence supports your claim. When we state a claim, we've already said it, it's a declaration of a state of affairs. But we have to have claims that are believable, because we have to find evidence that supports it. Most of your persuasive speeches will use claims as the thesis statement, and you may have other claims throughout the speech. But most of you will declare that something is right, or it's wrong, or it's good, or it's bad, and that's a claim. So when you provide your evidence, you have to have evidence for every claim, otherwise you end up in what's called logical fallacy, which will be a separate lecture. If your points are in the form of claims, or if you have claims within your points, they're going to need evidence as well. So you need to make sure that you support every claim that you make with evidence. Again, warrants justify the link between claim and evidence, making it clear that the two correspond with each other, that one supports the other. Warrants make evidence seem more trustworthy and believable to the audience. So what you're doing is just explaining how the two connect. There are different types of claims within an argument, which actually creates a specific kind of argument in and of itself. We have claims of fact, claims of value, and claims of policy. So you will have a fact-based argument, or a value-based argument, or a policy-based argument. So claims of fact focus on whether or not something is true or false, or will not happen. This is all based on factual evidence. Claims of value address issues of judgment or opinion. Things like right and wrong, good and bad. Your evidence here will be more subjective in nature a lot of times, though you will have some factual evidence as well. Claims of policy recommends that a specific course of action be taken or approved by the audience. So in other words, in a policy argument, you are arguing that we should change the way that we do something, whatever that is. So change the way things are done. There are three types of evidence as well. We have audience knowledge and opinions. So this is something that's going to be in the realm of common knowledge. We have speaker knowledge and opinions, things that come from your own experience. And if you've established credibility with your audience, that may be very valuable. And then we have external evidence. That external evidence is going to be like your library research and anything that comes from outside of you as the speaker or outside of the audience. And then we have three types of warrants. The first one is called a motivational warrant. This is an appeal to emotions. So we have, there's an example there for you if you've ever seen the ASPCA commercial, The Arms of the Angel. It's very emotionally laden. Lots of motivational warrants. This is just an application of pathos, using needs, desires, emotions, and values of the audience as the basis for them accepting the evidence. Then you have authoritative warrants. Authoritative warrants appeal to credibility. This is simply applying ethos, mentioning a famous athlete who endorses a product, like you see Russell Wilson here on the box of Wheaties, mentioning some name that has purchased your product or supports your cause. That is an authoritative warrant. Then we have what are called substantive warrants. Substantive warrants are appeals to reasoning. So this is an application of logos. This is based on the audience's beliefs about the reliability of factual evidence. And there are three kinds of substantive warrants. You have warrants by cause, which show a cause and effect relationship as proof of a claim. When one thing happens, this is the result, and we have that proven here. Warrants by sign, one thing closely follows another or is closely related to another. When you see this sign, it's an indicator of this over here. And then warrants by analogy, comparing two similar situations, suggesting that they will turn out the same if the same thing is done. So in this case, you take factual evidence, and it may not be directly related to what you're discussing, but it's close enough that you can make a comparison, a literal comparison between the two. Here we have what's called the inoculation effect. The inoculation effect is where you address both sides of the argument within your speech or within your argument. Meaning that if you expose the crowd to the opposing side, the crowd isn't likely, as likely to follow that side of things. But instead, they're more likely to side with you because you've already disproven the opposing side of the argument. There's a lot of different reasons why you want to talk about both sides. One of them is so that the audience can see that you know both perspectives and you still believe what you believe. You're still suggesting whatever it is that you are there to suggest, even though you've considered the alternatives. So, inoculation effect is addressing both sides. You will only spend a small amount of your time dedicated to the opposing side. Most of your time is going to be spent on your side of the argument. So make sure you keep that in mind.